AAA game developers need to start putting their players first if they want to survive. Let's talk about it. In the last few weeks, there has been a lot of drama in the gaming industry. It actually started with Escape from Tarkov. The most popular extraction shooter actually announced their Unheard edition, a bundle that will set you back $250. And that includes some questionable items, while the things that the players expected to be in the bundle were missing. It was storm and the community was not having it. So they started boycotting the game till they got an answer. Fallout 4, in the midst of their biggest resurgence in years, thanks to the television series on Prime, which we discussed in an earlier video by the way. Just saying. Decided to launch their next gen update. It was a huge update in size, with very low in impact, especially for PC players, which by itself is annoying. But you know, it's Bethesda. They've done this before. I'm a fan, but that company sure loves putting out new editions of all of their games. And those new editions usually change jack shit. Pardon my French. What was worse was that update actually broke a lot of the mods that are being used by their most loyal players. It's insane. Bethesda games are renowned for having the best mod community that you could ever wish for. These modders have extended the lifetime of Skyrim and all the other Bethesda games with at least a decade. So in other words, that update was a huge slap to the face for their most loyal customers. Later that week, an even bigger story unfolded. Helldivers 2. It has been one of the biggest success stories this year, and rightfully so. They have a decent monetization strategy and they actually interact with the community quite a lot. For a lot of gamers, it has been a beacon of light in these dark gaming days. Until, well, yeah. See, the game is being published by Sony, and on May 3rd, Sony published a post, Helldivers 2 Steam page, stating that all Helldivers 2 players, even the PC players, will be required to link their PSN accounts for security reasons. Yeah, that did not sit well with the player base, and it didn't sit well with Arrowhead, the developer of the game. But Sony was not planning to budge. So the community started review bombing the game, and they started demanding refunds. In some cases, even after playing the game for 100 hours, which usually does not fly, but this time around it did. They got the refunds. You know, all in all, it's sad to see that game that was such a success, made by a studio that means so well, end up in a situation like this just because some exec at Sony's figured he'd get a bonus if he could bump up the PSN numbers. Now, not only did this blemish the hard work that the people at Arrowhead put in the game, not only did it ruin their victorious moment in an industry that is suffering under the scorn and the tyranny of executive money-hungry goons, it also put a huge dent in the trust that players have towards PlayStation. Now, in the end, Sony had to give in, and they did with this kind of sad post and excuse, but players are no longer required to link up their accounts. But the damage is done. And all of that highlights a huge problem within the industry. Yeah, companies are supposed to make money. But you know what the thing is? You can't make money without your players. Stop spitting your user base in the face. And once in a while, put yourself in their shoes when you try and make these half-assed decisions. I mean, these were the stories that made the headlines in the last 2 weeks, but this has been going on for years. As some of you know, I also make Overwatch content. And that team also suffered under the leadership of greedy execs. Actually, all of Blizzard did. And at Blizzard, we're slowly seeing things change. All of the development teams are actually talking to the communities, and they're prioritizing the needs of those communities before their own. More than they did before, at least. But it's a slow process. On top of that, the idea of putting your player base first needs to be more than just picking the right features that you're going to push out, or doing some balancing changes. It needs to be a part of your company culture at every single level. I'm going to show you a quote by Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. And you might have an opinion on Steve Jobs and Apple, but what he says in this quote is actually the biggest problem in the gaming industry today. Let's have a look.
If you were a product person at IBM or Xerox, so you make a better copy or a better computer. So what? When you have a monopoly market share, the company's not any more successful. So the people that can make the company more successful are sales and marketing people. And they end up running the companies. And the product people get driven out of the decision-making forums. And the companies forget what it means to make great products. It sort of the product sensibility and the product genius that brought them to that monopolistic position gets rotted out by people running these companies who have no conception of a good product versus a bad product. They have no conception of the craftsmanship that's required to take a good idea and turn it into a good product.
All right, let me know in the comments what you think of of this quote. And let me get personal here for a second, because I'm not just pulling this out of Steve Jobs' ear. Before I started making videos like this for a living, I actually worked in the gaming industry myself. I've worked in the local Belgian industry off and on for the last 15 years. And most of the time in some type of management role. At one point I was a creative lead, and at the end I was the manager for a cluster of gaming companies. And in the last 15 to 20 years, in between those gaming jobs, I worked as a visual designer, UX designer, and I even got the chance to teach young people about UX and design at a college here in Belgium. Throughout my whole career, I learned one very important thing, and that is that the user, the end user, the client, whatever you want to call them, needs to be front and center for every single company on every single level that delivers a product or a service. It is critical for the success of that company in the long term. That idea has really taken root in the tech industry, although they sometimes seem to forget it, but you know. And I have worked for some of the leading product studios here in Belgium. And at those studios, even if we were working for a client that had end users, we would put those end users, the people at the end of the line, first. Not the company, not our clients. And that could be weird sometimes for our clients, but that's something for a different channel. The gaming industry is years behind on that idea. Last year, when I was still managing that cluster, I had taken on the idea of starting a new company within the cluster that would allow me to kind of use my UX expertise to help game studios out on that whole problem. And look, I'm not only talking about interfaces, menus, or helping blind people to play the same games that we do. Like I said, it was a user-centric approach for the whole company. Starting with the ideation, the design, but even the marketing and the sales needed to switch their mindset. So I traveled to GDC in San Francisco. It's the biggest gathering of game developers in the world. It happens every single year. And basically everybody from AAA studios to the small indies are there to share knowledge. I talked to a lot of people throughout that week, and I returned to Belgium completely disillusioned and disappointed. I found out that that user-centric idea does live and exist within the gaming industry, but only among the people that actually make the games, the people on the floor, the developers, the designers, the artists. In one company more than the other, but overall everybody was aware of who they were working for. The problem was the higher you go up that ladder, to the places where all of the decisions are being made, the more of a distance grew between the company and those end users. And they started focusing on the wrong people, which usually were the shareholders, the people that give the money. And it's typical for those people that they have no freaking clue how you make a game and how it all works. They have zero knowledge about the industry. I can attest to that. The only thing they care about is numbers. Not even the future numbers. No, they want the current numbers. Because they think they're selling you a product. But see, the thing is, games are not a product. They're an experience, a journey, an adventure, a social group, and in some cases even a lifestyle. And those people don't get that. You know what the worst thing is? If they would just allow the people that know best, the people that make the actual games, just do their thing, those shareholders, the people that are always looking at the money, would actually make more money if they just could think about the player base, the customers, the end users, once in a while. If Sony, Battlestate and Bethesda had asked themselves, how is this decision that we are about to make going to impact our community, they would not have missed out on a ton of money in the last few weeks. Because in the end, if they accept it or not, we, the gamers, the players, we are the bosses in this industry. Those people are working for us and they need to remember that. Alright. Make sure to subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care of yourself, take care of each other. Bye bye.